All right, we're back here at the Energy Series outside Chicago. I'm joined by Devin O'Donnell. We're moving into round 2 of the Modern 10K. And this round, we're going to have Kyle Alessandrini versus Joseph Bernal. And to kick things off, we're going to re-put the leaderboard back up there for you because it's relevant for the match because Joseph Bernal is fairly prominently displayed on it. So you can see here, Joseph Bernal in third place, already qualified. So points are irrelevant, but we want to acknowledge that he is in there alongside Piper Powell and Andrew Ellenbogen, already in the end of the year championship. The top several players on this list at the end of the year will join them. I believe it's 4 will qualify through this direct list, but Bernal already taken care of. Now, back to his deck list. Let's go ahead and take a look. Joseph Bernal versus Kyle Alessandrini. Let's go ahead and look at whichever one we have available first. There are some notable things in Bernal's deck list. Now, this is not a typical Izzet Murktide list. Devin, when you want to highlight some of the differences here?
Yeah, so if you'll notice, there are 0 copies of Ledger Shredder, 0 copies of Dragon's Rage Channeler, which that one has kind of fallen into favor. And you'll notice we have 4 copies of Snapcaster Mage, just like it's 2017. I know you mentioned that Joseph is a really big fan of Snapcaster Mage, so yeah, that's definitely definitely an inclusion. Also, Spell Snare, 2 copies in the main deck as well. So lots of different stuff going on with this quote unquote Murktide.
All right, and the players are getting ready. So let's go ahead and look at the opponent real quick deck list. These spell snares are going to be great because Kyle Alessandrini is playing Boros Burn, and there are plenty of heavy-hitting 2-drop spells here, like Eidolon, Boros Charm, Skullcrack, Searing Blaze, Lightning Helix. It hits everything. All right, let's go down to the table. Players are ready. Now, you may think this Murktide list looks a little questionable, but yeah, Devin, what do we think? I think Joseph's going to be massively favored in this matchup compared to the stock list.
Yeah, especially like you said, the spell snares and the Snapcaster Mage just being able to, take care of the creatures. He does have a lot of removal spells, 7 burn spells in total, so we're going to be able to answer creatures pretty effectively. And I think Spell Snare is probably the most impactful card because it's a way to just 1-for-1 an Eidolon without taking damage. Searing Blaze is generally a really powerful card in this matchup, so being able to answer that one for 1 mana is really, really nice as well for Joseph.
Yeah, so there is a cost though, like not having Shredder. I mean, that's creature that starts with 3 toughness and grows out of burn range of it. That's nice, but Snapcaster Mage. I mean, I may have overstated when I said heavily favored, but I do like Bernal's side of things. I like the Snapcaster Mages. I like the spell snares, and I also, for Bernal's side, like the fact that Kyle is unlikely to expect those cards.
Right. Yeah. We don't. I don't believe we have open deck lists. So there's, like you said, there's not going to be a lot of playing around spell snare. That's not one you usually see specifically, and even Snapcaster Mage. You mentioned Ledger Shredder. It is pretty powerful in a matchup like this if you can set up Shredder plus Bauble to make it a 2/4, which lets it, not dodge the 3 damage burn spells. But yeah, replacing those with Snapcaster Mages, if Joe can set that up, it should be pretty good for him.
Yeah. All right. We are going to need land drops here for Joseph Bernal. Looks like he does have Polluted Delta in hand at the least. And Kyle just starts off with 3 burn spells here. So generally, and people that watch Nerd Rage coverage consistently have heard me say this before, I really favor the burn hands that lead on creatures on turn 1. I feel like the ability to get in a couple attacks is valuable just because the creature's Lava Spike does the same damage on turn 8 as it does on turn 1. That is not the case for Monastery Swiftspear and things like that. So, Kyle, we'll see. A lot of damage. I mean, Bernal's 11, but it's a very...
Yeah, no, like you said, no consistent source of damage.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you have a turn 1 Goblin Guy, that can deal sometimes 4, sometimes even 6 damage. So, and the ceiling on Goblin Guide, it gets worse as the game progresses. There's more likely to have blockers or removal spells. So yeah, I definitely agree with you there. You definitely want to prioritize the creature on turn 1 for sure.
So Joseph at 11, Riftbolt suspended. Now, we talk about how they're okay, Snapcaster Mage, Spell Snare. All these cards are great. There is no life gain available. So all these life points that Joseph takes, they're not getting them back. And the fetch lands will add up. I mean, sure, probably only a point at a time. But with 1 one fetch land play and one in hand. Joseph's life totals that kind of capped at 9 going forward, and Riftbolt suspended. Well, okay, let's see. Dash
What Joseph
Ragavan.
is really looking for here is a Murktide Regent, because we want to. Joseph really wants to be able to get some significant pressure on Kyle. Doesn't want to give Kyle a bunch of infinite time, as it were. So we go ahead and dash the Ragavan, and the Helix is going to take care of that. So that's gonna draw a step. I don't know if that's a missed trigger. I assume it's not. I don't think that's mandatory triggers. So
yeah, it looks like we're okay. All right. Horizon Land cashed in right away, and okay, here's a Swiftspear. Not quite on time. Here's a second one.
yeah, and I think I saw an Unholy Heat in Joseph's hand. The weird thing is, you'll notice that Joseph didn't fetch the Polluted Delta for a basic island before dashing the Ragavan, and I don't know if he had some plans, but if he had fetched an island and then left up the Spirebluff Canal, we could have Unholy Heated one of the Swiftspears. But obviously, he didn't want to fetch Shock and take 3 to do that.
Right, and so now we're gonna fetch anyway. So, I mean, down to 4. Boros Charm is now lethal. But you're right. The potential 1 damage saved here, could make a difference.
Yeah, like imagine if Joseph was at 5, he wouldn't have to worry about any single card off the top killing him. So that might cost Joseph a little bit here.
Turn is passed. Archmage Charm among other cards in hand. Kyle draws Lava Spike, and I mean, sure, you've got prowess and everything, but like, if Lava Spike resolves,
even if it gets countered, still representing lethal.
Yeah. So
I believe Joseph's hand is Unholy Heat, Archmage's Charm, Snapcaster Mage, I think another red card as well. So if Joseph has something like a Counterspell, you could see, Counterspell the Lava Spike, kill both the Swiftspears. I don't believe he has the actual Counterspell. So what you're likely going to see here is removal spell on the Swiftspear and then counter the Lava Spike, go to 2.
Maybe, or maybe
we're going to steal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And just go to 1.
I mean, 2 and 1 isn't very different at this point for Joseph.
Yeah.
And now he does have a blocker.
Or maybe even an attacker.
Perhaps.
Get a little frisky. You do have to end this game. Joseph really, really needs a Murktide Regent. Okay.
Snare, Snapcaster, Bauble. Okay, those are all solid. Snapcaster goes to the bottom. Bernal already has 1.
Yeah, definitely taking the Snare there.
Kyle's like, here's the prowess dice. Don't forget to attack me. Don't do anything crazy like leave back a blocker. It's 3 damage. All right, Joseph's in there.
Attack for 3. So I guess we can't really play Murktide here because we have to hold up Counterspell.
Do we have a Counterspell? I'm not.
Brick number 1.
All right, Snapcaster on offense. Just the way we drew it up.
This is why Joseph is playing Snapcaster, just as, Ambush Viper.
Yeah. See, I'm so low tech. I was just thinking it was like a 5-mana Archmage's chart, but you're right. It's a 2-mana 2/1. Let's get in there.
Joseph really wants to hit a Lightning Helix here.
That would be pretty.
Can you imagine? That is.
Got me.
I'm bad with the promos.
Yeah, I think it's a Goblin Grenade. Probably not.
Oh, Goblin Guide. Okay.
I was saying grenade, but yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know.
Could be a grenade.
There is a Boros Charm. There is a treasure, so Archmage Charm is online. Kyle's not going to die on the next attack, so probably incentivized to just hold this and then cast it at the end of Bernal's turn to try and tax the mana a little bit.
Yeah, especially if you expect Joseph to dash the Ragavan, get 2 mana from Joseph, and then potentially can go fire off the Boros Charm, force Joseph to counter, and then maybe he doesn't have another counter spell that he has access to. So,
Oh, okay, that just got played. All right, yeah, this ball was fresh. I got confused there for a second as to why the ball didn't get cracked last turn, but that's a new one. All right, here's another attack for 6.
And we'll do another Lightning Helix check. It's a Searing. I know that one.
I'm confident you'll know all of them. And any players who are playing with like funky, altered, holographic, artist signed upside down cards, that's their own problem.
Yeah, chat actually making a good point here. So Kyle decided to hold the Inspiring Vantage from 2 turns ago, potentially for Searing Blaze. The thing is, Searing Blaze is lethal regardless because Joseph's at 1, and we might be in a situation where Kyle then won't be able to double spell with 2/2 drops if he does hold that Vantage. So maybe could come back to bite him, but we'll see.
All right, there is the Snare, and that, assuming Joseph can trigger Prowess next turn, that will mean the game is locked up, I believe, because there is still an Archmage Charm available and 2 treasures to cast it. There's an Eidolon that will...
And
there's
that
another
should do it.
Snare. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a Charm, so we can just go Dash Ragavan, play the Charm. Yep.
Okay, well, that Swiftspear ended up dealing quite a bit of damage. And
yeah, that was...
the player that did all the creature damage won the game. So
that's true. Kyle didn't attack with a single creature that game, so...
Yeah, Joseph Bernal wins the game at 1 life, but that's all you need. All right, let's look at the sideboards, see what the players may gain. Joseph Bernal looked like he already had quite a bit. So, Kyle, do we have something to turn this matchup on its head? 4 Roiling Vortex. Wow, that is and 4 Smash Smithereens. All right, I like this sideboard. I'm not sure I love it for this matchup, but...
Definitely prepared for the Cascade matchup. I think if I'm Kyle, the only cards that I'm really looking at, I think I want Path to Exile to potentially deal with Murktide Regent. And I've seen Burn players bring in Sanctifier on Vec for the fact that it doesn't die to the red removal and it potentially can mess up Delirium. Now, again, Kyle doesn't know the components of Joseph's deck, so he might expect things like Dragon's Rage Channeler, which isn't present. So with us knowing Decklist, I don't think I'd bring in the Sanctifier, but it might be a card that Kyle looks at, not knowing the exact components of Joseph's deck.
All right, now let's go ahead and look. And there's definitely some options here. I mean, Roiling Vortex, this isn't the matchup it's designed for. Could you bring it in as like a very slow source of like permanent damage? Maybe. Not the best, but
you could, but yeah, I don't love it too much here.
Yeah. All right, let's go and look at Bernal's deck list. We'll focus on the sideboard this time around. And I bet we'll find at least a few things that look like winners. Okay, Ether Gust. Always nice to have.
Flusterstorm is huge in this matchup too. So definitely like Flusters, Ether Gust. You could maybe talk me into the explosives. As you did mention, the creatures are a huge part of the games that Kyle wins. So having an answer to one of those 1-drops or multiple 1-drops could be good. The only thing I will say is that it's a little bit slow on the draw, and Joseph does have 7 spot removal spells already. So I don't know if he wants to go towards more of that, but we'll definitely like the Flusters and the Ether Gust.
Right. Where Terra be if the Roiling Vortex is making an appearance in game 2, we might see Wear Terror for game 3 because it deals with Eidolon as well. But if it's just targeting Eidolon, that doesn't seem good enough. And the Spell Snares, really, I mean, that's kind of one of their main roles also. So Joseph should be better, I would say, than the average Murktide list, going second here against Burn. But we'll see if that's enough to stop Kyle with... and we'll see if Kyle can muster up a creature on turn 1 this time and... get things rolling as the players shuffle up for game 2.
Is there ever a card that you want to see more in your opening hand than Spell Snare on the draw?
Absolutely not. I mean, as someone who has played plenty of Spell Snare in Legacy over a span of several years, it's just so comforting to have, to know that your 1-mana spell is going to stop their 2-mana spell when they're going first. It's such a good deal. Now, granted, not viable in every matchup, but this one is very strong.
I remember when Spell Snare first came out, it was this dynamic because they never really printed a card that was as good on the draw, and it really kind of reintroduced this, like, in terms of just designing cards that are good on the draw, that was kind of like the first one of its kind. So
No, I really like that in principle. Like something like Gemstone Caverns is obviously just functional in the draw, not so much in the play, and being able to even up the play draw. I was gonna say advantage or favoritism for the player going first, even though the times when we've actually looked at like analysis of going first versus going first isn't as much of an edge as I would have thought, but it does matter. All right, so here we go. The opening, once again, no creature, and Bernal with 2 baubles. So that means he didn't really have a good grasp of what hand he was even keeping here with 2 random cards in it.
Yeah, turn 1, main phase lightning bolt, not exactly the start that Kyle's looking for.
No.
I guess you just, you want to resolve it to make sure that it doesn't get hit by like a Spell Pierce or a Flusterstorm. Potentially going to follow this up with an Eidolon, and I believe Joseph does have the Spell Snare. Ooh, yep.
That is super nice. I mean, Kyle can't be thrilled, even with the Eidolon in hand, with Bernal playing 2 baubles on turn 1 just to get it out of the way. But then the Eidolon doesn't even make it onto the board. Yeah, this is so deflating if you're in Kyle's seat already.
Yeah, because usually when you play Eidolon, you're like, okay, well, my opponent's going to answer the Eidolon. At least I'll get 2 damage out of the way. And this is just, nope, absolutely not. Just the best possible answer for an Eidolon. So that's really, really good for Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't even get 2 mana out of the deal, much less 2 damage. You got actually just nothing. I had a 3rd bauble. Okay. And Joseph will get things rolling here. This is 1, 2, or 5 cards in the graveyard. Oh boy.
We can see a turn 2 Murktide. It'll only be a 4/4, but
I mean,
is that what we're doing? I think that's what we're doing.
I think so too.
I'm with it.
Second basic island fetched out. 4/4. I mean, 4/4 gets around the common removal, and this is this is at the very least, this shuts down every creature in Kyle's deck. And it probably starts attacking him for chunks of damage. And oh boy.
Yeah, it's really just like perfect sequence for Joseph here. The Spell Snare into the turn 2 Murktide just doesn't really get much better. So we're going to go for a Searing Blaze, and I have to imagine Kyle may or may not point a burn spell at this Murktide, but it's kind of awkward. Even if he does, he's still not in a great spot because he only has 1 card left, and as we talked about, or 2 cards left, but as we talked about, no creature means that there's no consistent source of damage, so it's really just trying to draw enough burn spells to, make sure, or draw more burn spells than Joseph can draw counter spells, but you'll know with the blue-red Murktide deck, because they look at so many cards with cantrips and iterations, that's not likely to happen.
I mean, if you're going to point 2 burn spells at a Murktide, at least one of them's a Searing Blaze, so it's like you bolted. It's like you used 1 removal spell against the Murktide, so it's not the end of the world for Kyle. But with no momentum going whatsoever, Joseph sitting pretty comfortably at, I think, 11 now with Ragavan on the board. It's just, I mean, Joseph has just drawn more creatures than Kyle, or at least deployed more of them. Ouch. Just, I mean, this
second Spell Snare. Oof.
Oh boy. Joseph Bernal, the poster boy for Spell Snare being powerful in the current modern format, I guess. I mean, this is just Kyle's just like frozen in an act. Like, what do you mean you have Spell Snare again? What is going on?
This is bullying at this point, right?
Oh. Yeah.
I mean, chat did point out there's a lot of good 2-mana cards in the format. Eladamri's Call, Renin 6, Ledger Shredder. So this might, Joseph might be onto something here. This might be a really good metagame for Spell Snare.
Sure. Okay, so Kyle's like, all right, I guess I'll fetch, and then I hopefully find some other way to deal with this. I mean, if Kyle's last card is a burn spell, it's got to go with the Ragavan, I think. But how do you even catch up from there?
Yeah, you just your last card, and then you're looking at Joseph, who has, I believe, still 4 cards in hand, maybe 3. But yeah, just down so many resources. Joseph's still at a healthy 11. You have to draw 4 burn spells in order to kill Joseph. So yeah, it's all downhill from here for Kyle.
Yeah, and for the person in chat asking, was that a Spell Snare? Yes, indeed it was. Not only was it a Spell Snare, it was actually 2 Spell Snares in game 1 and 2 more in game 2 to just kind of annihilate Kyle's chances of winning this match.
Yeah, and to verify, we did not travel back in time to 2017. This is 2022. You're fine.
All right, Ragavan. Yeah. Yeah, because if we're back in 2017, you'd be reading this Ragavan and be like, what is this? Is this like a special promo, one of a kind, card for somebody's, birthday present? Because it's certainly not a real Magic card. Kyle's like, I guess I'll untap my land. Sure, whatever. Leave me alone.
All right, we got 3 cards.
All right.
Oh no, I think I might have saw one of Kyle's cards. Okay, maybe I saw it wrong. I thought maybe Kyle had a deflecting palm, and that one would not be good here. But I don't. Maybe that wasn't it. I hope not for Kyle's sake. No, I think it is. That's not good.
Well, deflecting palm, I don't hate. I mean,
It is a card that you could talk yourself into boarding against Murktide. It does look really, really bad here when the threat is, Ragavan.
Yeah.
It's a high variance card, right? If you get people, if you can hit a Murktide and do like 4 or 5 or 6 damage with it, it's gonna look great, but it's one of those like super duper high variance cards, and it's something that Kyle did not want to see off the top of his deck for this turn.
Okay, Boros Charm in hand, and it's half of Joseph's life total right there. If it resolved, which is optimistic.
Yeah, I believe I saw a Snapcaster in Joseph's hand. I think there's at least a red card. I definitely saw an Unholy Heat. Can't be 100% too sure about what the rest of the contents are, but...
Oh, Ragavan's coming across again. So, Deflecting Palm can, it's a 2 damage burn spell at the moment. Yes, that fogs the Ragavan attack, which is actually relevant. Because, like you're saying, there is every attack, there's a chance the Lightning Helix slips over. And if that ever happens, we're done.
Do we just go upstairs with this Rift Bolt? We'll see.
That's
Depends on what, depends on what's in Joseph's hand.
It's a lot of mana, but there are 3 treasures, so it's maybe affordable.
Yeah, if he has something like double Counterspell, he can just, he has 7 mana, so we can just cast the Rift Bolt and then still leave up double Counterspell, but we'll decide against it. Probably safer. I just like killing the burn player with their own burn spells,
Yeah, I mean, for Kyle, when this Rift Bolt doesn't get cast, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so good.
Okay, land, which is important for Kyle because I did see a Spell Pierce in Joseph's hand, so now Kyle can Boros Charm and play around the Spell Pierce. So we got Boros Charm, Deflecting Palm, and I can't quite tell what that last card is.
All right,
maybe a Skewer. Yeah, so it is a Skewer.
Okay, so we're gonna have to fire off something here. No, okay. So Kyle's just going to keep drawing here. Try and cast all the spells at once, which, that's a legitimate approach. However, I feel like, because, he doesn't know there's Spell Pierce in Joseph's hand. And maybe when you see all these spell snares, you assume it's not even in the deck. But now we'll see.
Snare.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and like you were saying, I think Kyle's trying to set up a point where he can just fire off, end step double spell, untap double spell, or something like that, to maybe overload Joseph's mana. The issue is Joseph has so much mana with that Ragavan that I don't even think that that's really a possibility. And the longer you wait, the more draw steps you give to Joseph to find, more counter spells. So, and now that there's also a second 2-power creature in play, this is now, instead of a 5-turn clock, it's a 3-turn clock. So definitely want to. Probably going to have to start firing some stuff off here from Kyle.
Swiftspear, that's a nice blocker if Bernal needs it, and then also an additional attacker. Yeah, and we're kind of Kyle, just like everyone watching in chat, Kyle also knows that he just got crushed, and there's nothing he can do about it at this point. So he's just playing out the game here.
Yeah, those spell snares were just backbreaking for Kyle.
Yeah, he just never got anything going at all. And it still got Bernal down to 1 life in game 1, and 8 in game 2 with several cards in hand. I mean, it's possible he could hit him down a little bit further, but I think it'd be pretty surprising here if Bernal's whatever counter magic is in hand, if it isn't enough to handle whatever's in Kyle's hand, I would be surprised to many of us. All right, here is the Boros Charm.
We'll go with, I think that's Counterspell.
Mm-hmm.
And just a reminder for everybody as we see Kyle pick up the cards, those of you in the stream, if you want to get notifications of when the NRG series goes live, be sure to hit that follow button. It doesn't cost you anything. It's completely free. So would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, if you're fans of Spell Snare, hit the follow button. And if you hate Spell Snare, hit the follow button. We're looking for consistency here. All right, Joseph Bernal does win this match against Burn 2-0 with, I mean, maybe there was a little fear in game 1 that would slip away, but really it looked pretty solid both games. All right, we do have another match for you this round. We are going to be looking at Tom Tracy versus Sean Gallagher, if our sheet is correct. So I don't know if this is or we're going to go in time shifted or if we're going to go in live, depending on where they're at in the match. All right, we're going to time shift and start with game 1 so you can see the whole match, or at least we'll see it from the beginning. We'll see if Sean Gallagher or Tom Tracy is able to come out on top. 4-color Yorion versus Izzet Murktide. Okay, so these 4-color decks that we talked about, that you all know about, we are going to try and avoid having them on camera too often at the beginning of the day, especially in mirrors. Everyone knows these 4-color decks are important in Modern. It is perhaps the most important deck in the format. Everyone also knows these 4-color mirrors are very long. So, given the choices in the early rounds, we're going to showcase some other decks. But here we are for the first time today, probably the first of many. Sean Gallagher with 4-color Yorion versus Tom Tracy with Izzet Murktide.
Yeah, and I remember we were talking about it during the break. It was the 4-color mirror feels a lot like the green-white devotion mirror back in that standard format. For those of you who played, just slogs upon slogs upon slogs.
Yeah, and it's just nobody runs out. There's so much card advantage. The decks are better at dealing with their threats than they are at killing the opponent, and the games just never end. However, that's not what we're facing here. 4-color Yorion versus Izzet Murktide in the hands of Tom Tracy, who production, I believe we have Tom Tracy's last name spelled incorrectly, so we can fix that at some point. That'd be great. And I just realized this is a time shifted match, so you're going to tell me that we can't fix it. So, Tom Tracy, if you're watching this later on, apologies.
All right, so not a lot of stuff going on here in the early turns. We got an abundant growth for Sean. No Ren and 6 on turn 2, and also no Ice Fangs. Looks like we're fetching a tap land. And then for Tom, no 1-drop. No 1-drop on turn 1 or turn 2. No Shredder. So, yeah, just a lot of, just making some land drops and playing into the mid game. So we'll see how this progresses.
Yeah, now, unlike the burn deck, this blue-red Murktide deck can play a reasonable game, into the turn 5, turn 8, turn 10 type of game, but the 4-color Yorion deck is better equipped to play a 20-turn game, I think we would say, but there's competition here.
Right, yeah, definitely. The 4-color deck is certainly more well-equipped, but there's definitely some big plays. Tom has, I would say, in general, more counter magic than, I believe, let me just pull up Sean's deck list, but I'm pretty sure I saw some counter spells in Sean's deck list. 4 copies of Counterspell in Sean's this deck list. We also got a couple of spicy ones here. This is, I know we had talked about that during the break, the 2 time warps. So maybe we'll see those come up. But yeah, that's definitely an end game that Sean's going to be playing towards, is just the setup of, time warp plus Eternal Witness. So
yeah, time warp, not, the most mana efficient card, but if you get, these decks hit so many land drops, get so much junk on the board, even just a Solitude attacking. A free attack, pick up an extra 3 life, and then, card off the top, it's totally fine. Now, 2 time warps, we talked about a little bit, is, on the heavier side, but good in the mirror, good in any long match. It's going to be, it's like an expensive cantrip, but when you're playing a game that's 20 turns long and you have 15 land on the board, it's fine.
Right, there's probably never a point. I mean, obviously, once you have enough mana to cast, there's probably really never a bad time to draw a Time Warp in the mirror
Mhm.
match. So, probably maybe a consideration there too. And Time Warp also gives you inevitability win condition, right? So if you're worried about going to time, and maybe you can just set up the Time Warp loop, and if you do set that up, that can prevent you from going to time as much, can kind of close out the game a little bit quicker. So maybe
Mhm.
a concession to that as well.
Yeah. Plus, if you're going to turns, you may as well take as many of the turns as you can. You don't have to play fair. There's nothing that says each player gets 3 turns when you get to, when you hit time and have 5 turns left. You can take them all if you want to. All right, now we have actual offense presented by Tom Tracy, at least for the moment. Here's a quaddle for Sean Gallagher on defense. And draws a card. And it's just these Yorion decks. There's just so many things they do. Just draw cards so they don't run out very easily.
Teferi is kind of a beating here. You can go pick
Yeah.
up the Ledger Shredder, have the Kodo to block the Ragavan, and a plus. Okay. I guess that makes sense too. You're not too worried about the Teferi just taking a point of damage. We also might have Solitude plus Ephemerate here, which would be kind of backbreaking for Tom. And nothing that Tom can really interact with because of the Teferi's in play. So
Yeah, Teferi plus Unholy Heat definitely hurts the utility of plussing and going up to 5 in the matchup since it can still die to 1 card, but barring that, super strong. And this is a deck. I mean, these Murktide decks, there's a lot of counter magic in this deck. So this is virtual card advantage. And I've seen something that annoys me over time, and I've been playing so long that I've seen several generations of this, where terms kind of get redefined over time, or get said like, oh, it doesn't really mean this, doesn't really mean that, it means this. Virtual card advantage, I don't even know what it means now, but when I started playing virtual card advantage event, for example, like Teferi right now, the counters in Tom Tracy's hand aren't castable. If the Teferi is removed, they become cards again, but for right now they're blanks, and so that's what Teferi does. And we see a terrible attack here. I think we have to go both at Teferi, right? Just give one up.
right, yeah, because we did bolt the what's that? Oh, prismatic ending.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll
Yep.
go chump the Ledger Shredder to protect the Teferi. We saw the bolt main phase because we needed to put a counter on the Ledger Shredder to be able to deal that extra second point to Teferi if it were to connect. So that's why we bolted main phase. And we can't bolt in combat, obviously, because Teferi.
Yeah, that's kind of a beating. So that bolt just
Yeah, that's like
it's
one
just
of the
wasted.
worst things.
Yeah.
One of the worst things about Teferi is you kind of have to play your hand. You basically have to do everything. If you plan on doing stuff pre-combat, you give your opponent all of the information before even committing to a single attack. So that's why Teferi is even more of a beating here too.
Yeah, and that's just, I mean, one element of this deck, of this 4-color deck. And that's all. And it's a nuisance to deal with. There's a replacement Ragavan. Okay. I mean, that's something. Sean will need another removal spell or a sweeper, or, but he's just bound to have them.
Yeah, and I believe if I remember correctly, I think Sean does have main deck Supreme Verdict.
He does. Yeah.
Yeah,
He
2
has a pair.
copies.
Yeah.
So.
But an 80-card deck, I mean, that's not always going to be available when you want it. So let's just see what Sean does have for us here.
It's like a Wren.
All right.
Yep, that is a Wren. So that's probably going to go after the Ragavan. And then we'll see if Sean has an answer to this Shredder.
Maybe even bounce with Teferi? I mean, that would be...
I think we already plussed.
You're correct.
Remember, because Teferi went to 5, bolted it down to 2,
Yeah.
and then it went up to 3.
Yeah.
Can't have ending because we had a tap land there. Maybe Solitude? Could be a Solitude.
All right, Dragon Rage Chandler followed by Iteration. I mean, nice setup here. And, if this Teferi gets knocked off the board, then Tom is, back in business.
Yeah, and I'm just going to assume I can't really take a look, but I'll just safely assume that we have Delirium at this point. There's a lot of cards.
That seems likely. So.
Yeah, sorcery, instant, artifact land. So yeah, definitely has Delirium. So see if Teferi gets hit. I assume we're going after... do you go after Ren or Teferi? You probably have to go after Teferi because of the bounce. Yeah, you have to go after Teferi here.
Yeah, I think so. And Sean kind of leans forward in his chair, so some thought is going into this, and he'll... Okay, Eldari's Call. So, yeah, Solitude is, you know, an option here. Tom will get another Connive trigger as Call into Solitude is 2 spells. Is Sean searching or is he thinking?
Oh, he's searching, I think. Because that was the first spell.
There's,
Get the Solitude.
He's not 100% about this choice. Yeah, he's thinking. Maybe this is going to connect.
Endurance? Interesting. So that would tell me that maybe Sean doesn't have a white card in his hand? Because we can't hardcast the Endurance.
Right. So did we I'm sorry, I missed. I don't know if we missed the Connive on the Ledger Shredder or if we just
I think Tom did the Connive free combat.
No, I'm sorry. I was talking about on Sean's turn. I was ahead of myself thinking that because of Call into Solitude, but we only cast the Call so far, so we haven't even got to that point. So I jumped the gun there.
Okay, so I think what happened there was Shredder attacked Teferi. Sean cast the Call thinking he was going to get the Solitude, decided to change his mind, get the Endurance, and just let Teferi die. I think that's what happened.
So here's Witness.
So this, I would assume, is going to target the Prismatic ending, because you want to get that Shredder off the table. That'd be my guess.
Are we sure that we got Endurance? Did we get Witness, or we definitely got Endurance?
I thought it was Endurance.
Okay.
But I don't know. They're green cards. They're foils.
Yeah.
So it's maybe tough to tell.
All right. Anyway, Witness on the board here, and oh, nice. So Dress Down is going to stop that from happening.
Oh wow, that's actually crazy too. Well, I guess you can just Endurance on Tom's turn, but now, so because Sean didn't Ren first, I guess Sean wanted to ping the death to the Dragonfish Channeler, but now we can't Endurance in response to the Ren, so that's really huge too. Or Endurance in response to the Dress Down, I should say, because we only had 2 mana.
But Ren 6 does take down Dragonfish Channeler. So not all is lost here for Sean Gallagher's turn.
Oh, because the Dress Down, lost abilities. Got it. Okay. Now I follow.
Yeah,
so there's what's going on there.
yeah, there is. Yeah, I mean, we talk about not wanting to watch these mirrors. It's not because they're not interesting. It's because they take a long time and the risk of draws is real. But there are certainly a lot going on. And we see here, after Ren 6 gets knocked off, Murktide comes in, and I don't think Sean has a ton of cards. And I think if Tom Tracy would also agree that if Sean had Supreme Verdict, it would have been cast last turn.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you definitely would not have slow rolled the Supreme Verdict versus the Shredder and the Ragavan, or Shredder and the DRC, excuse me. So yeah, definitely heads up play from Tom there to recognize that there's no Supreme Verdict. And again, Tom doesn't even, they don't have Decklist, so he's not even 100% sure that Supreme Verdict does exist, but maybe can assume it.
All right, so we got, I believe there are 5 land in play for Sean Gallagher, the 2 Abundant Growths there, and then the 5 actual lands. So not a whole ton to work with here.
Yeah, that's what I see as well.
Yorion's nowhere close to impacting anything here. And how much damage do we have in the air here? It looks like 10 at the moment. Well, okay. Omnath does a pretty good job of padding the life total if it makes it into play.
Wow.
And Sean Gallagher's going to pack it up.
Very, very, very well sequenced by Tom there. Very, very well.
Yeah, nice game by Tom Tracy. I don't know that Sean Gallagher may have been able to just, take the hit and see if there's a verdict on top of the deck, but decides, you know what, or the life totals could have been incorrect. That is something that happens sometimes, especially in time shifted matches. But anyway, yeah, Tom Tracy picks up game 1. If we have a deck list, let's go ahead and take a look. And here's Tom Tracy's Izzet Murktide. So you can see here, not a, deviant deck list like Joseph Bernal presented with, spell snares left and right. So this looks fairly stock, I would say. What do you like in the sideboard?
So from Tom's side, it's so funny that we're playing against the 4-color deck, and I actually don't think that Magus or Blood Moon are that good. The
Right.
4-color deck has a lot of basic lands, abundant growth, especially Magus too, because Magus dies to the red removal. So if you, I wouldn't touch the Moon effects. I do like Dress Down. I like Mystical Dispute. I like Jace, and I think I like Subtlety.
Okay.
And with maybe Fury as a kind of a potential, not 100% on Fury though.
Okay. So Hearse is, I mean, there's obviously some witness, there's some graveyard interactions, but Hearse is not a guarantee here. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at Sean Gallagher's 4-color Yorion deck. We do see the main deck Emrakul that I feel like is becoming more and more common. We see the 2-time warps, which I don't think is anything close to being a mainstay.
Yeah, and then some cards in the bottom. I think those are all lands there. But
yeah,
so the cards that we're looking at from Sean's side in terms of sideboard, we got 2 Endurances, very, very good against, especially because we're against the Dragon's Rage Channeler version, which is maybe the less popular version of Murktide, but Endurance is very, very good against the Channeler version. So we'll bring in those, potentially the Fury to deal with Ragavans and small Channelers, potentially Flusterstorm / Dispute to help fight over counterspells, and Chalice. Yeah, I think we're gonna. So Chalice typically is, you're gonna put it on 1 in this matchup, which does shut off Ephemerate, Lightning Bolt, Abundant Growth. So maybe Chalice, but I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get game 2 going. Jace also may be a possibility, but certainly no guarantee. And here we go. Sean Gallagher leads on his Steam Vents. Game 2 underway. Tom Tracy, despite not having an impressive opening last game, does get things turned around. Creatures backed by counter magic, and really had to battle through some planeswalkers there to get that done.
Right, yeah. We saw the Wrenn and 6, we saw the Teferi, and this is definitely a start that Tom wants to see. We got, Land, Channeler, Bauble. Hopefully, maybe for Tom's sake, can dodge a Wrenn and 6. There's a Bolt, so definitely can dodge the Wrenn. But yeah, Tom fought through a lot that game.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so no early plays this game again, but that's not necessarily a sign of trouble. There are pretty annoying planeswalkers that Sean has, so Tom, if counter magic is available, may want to justify holding some up. And I mean, the counter magic, whether you're playing it on turn 2 to stop Wrenn and 6 or turn 7 to stop, or 10 or 20 to stop Yorion, I mean, these counters are good all game long. But it's hard to, I would imagine it's hard to prioritize. Is it worth countering this on turn 4, or should I wait for later on? Because there's just so many valuable cards coming out of the 4-color deck.
Right, and you see Sean's mana base is a little scuffed here. We have, I think, Plains Island Steven, so no green mana currently, and I believe that's Sean just aggressively fetching basics because he's aware of the presence of Blood Moon and realizes that might be a card that Tom might want access to. So may have a green fetch land in his hand to get a basic forest here. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, 1 Blood Moon, 1 Magus the Moon. I feel like that's what I see in every deck list, and it's just a good amount because it's enough that you kind of have to respect, but you can't devote any real resources dealing with it because it's just not enough. You can't board in a bunch of answers to something so small. And here is Dash Ragavan, not connecting, but at a real cost for Sean Gallagher there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, with the 2-for-1ing himself to get the Solitude out. Sean does have decent cards left over. We picked up the Yorion last turn. I believe, is that what he pitched? I think so. That might also be an Ephemerate.
I think it's an Ephemerate, yeah, which would actually be a rarity in matches we've covered over the last year. It feels like these companions, their most common use is just get picked up and then tossed to an incarnation immediately. But here, Sean, despite having picked up Yorion on turn 3, keeps it around and pitches Ephemerate.
Yeah, very, very surprised by that. So we got plans for that Yorion. I wonder why we decided to pitch the Ephemerate and not the Yorion. Interesting.
All right, here is an Omnath. Last game it did not land. This game looks like it will. And
That's no
yeah.
dispute.
Okay, well, that's a nice exchange for Sean Gallagher.
Yeah, Ragavan.
So last turn dash Ragavan, this turn just cast normally.
Yeah, and that maybe mean that Tom picked up a counterspell.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to dash last turn and didn't want to risk the Ragavan potentially getting hit by a Solitude and not holding up counterspell. So that could be something that
that's a good
worth
call
considering.
there. So as we develop here, Tom Tracy's going to miss the land drop here, which I guess is not devastating. He does have Archmage Charm available, and we may be looking to draw here. Yep.
So draw 2. But Tom is really looking for a threat here, because the longer this game goes with Tom not having a threat in play, you're giving the 4-color deck a lot more time to set up, and as we talked about, delve into that mid-game. So we got a Shredder here. See if we have a counterspell. That's going to be yep, we do. Okay, so that's going to trigger the Shredder. Really, really good sequencing here for Tom, where we get to play the Shredder and trigger it in the same turn with the counterspell. So very, very good sequence for Tom.
Yeah, interesting there. The connive discard was a Mishra's Bauble. I wonder if that was actually drawn on the connive. Otherwise, it's very unusual for that not just be the first play after the Shredder resolves.
Yeah.
Anyway,
good point there.
Ren 6 comes in and gets to work. Sean Gallagher picks up a land. And we just continue on. But now Sean Gallagher can just worry about, now that there's something on the board, I couldn't even finish that sentence. Because
now there's something on the board.
Now there's a lot on the board, yeah. All right, so Ledger Shredder is joined by Murktide Regent, and now Tom Tracy's back in business.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what Tom was looking for here. Just the double threat turn. Sean's really low on resources, may have a second, Solitude in hand, but even if Solitude does hit the board, we see, Murktide hit the bin, and then we still have the Shredder to pressure the Ren. Mm-hmm. So there's it's looking really good for Tom here.
Yeah, there are certainly potential issues, though. We know those Supreme Verdicts are in the deck. Unknown if they're in hand, but Sean Gallagher has basically achieved mana dominion over the board. He can cast anything he can draw. We know the Yorion is looming, although it's unlikely to come down here. Oh. I am spot on as usual.
I mean, it does block the Shredder, so that is something that Sean definitely. And we draw one card. I think it's just one growth, right? Yeah, one growth.
Yeah. So that, I feel like that's kind of a sign of weakness there for Sean Gallagher, because that was not a great Yorion. And there is more. Ooh. There's the Jace. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Well, if this let's see, there's 2 mana open, so Dispute is live if Sean Gallagher has one.
See, maybe a fight here, Dispute, answer with a counterspell, something along those lines. We'll have to see what looks like something. Okay.
That's a Quaddle.
Yep, so Quaddle could find the Mystical Dispute off of the draw. But sign of desperation for Sean here. Probably doesn't have an answer to Jace in his hand.
Mm-hmm. And Jace
resolves.
Now, I am a huge fan of Jace not brainstorming. So let's see. There are real options here. I mean, bounce Yorion doesn't really open the door for a great attack. So, ooh.
Do we have enough basics? I just want to double check. Yeah, we do, right? I think there's 3 basics. Okay. Just doing a check on Death Touch for Ice Fang. So yeah, no attacks here, because we don't want to trade for the Ice Fang.
Okay, I mean, situations may prove me wrong. For example, if this Yorion gets countered on the way back down, then that's fine. But if it doesn't, this Jace bounce seems, in fact, oh no, if that's a Teferi, that's really going to explode the plans here for Tom Tracy. Yeah, I feel like you can't bounce that Yorion unless you're planning on countering it. And now that's just not going to work.
Yeah, because now we go counter Teferi, and then the Yorion still resolves.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a rough spot.
Yeah. I mean, it's not devastating for Tom Tracy, but it's certainly not ideal. Oh, it's a dress down. Interesting.
That's even worse for Tom, because now Teferi can just pick up the Murktide. Now, granted, Tom has a lot of lands in play, so we can still recast the Murktide. I don't think it's going to be quite as big, though. Oh, we're actually going upstairs with Teferi. Interesting. That's a little surprising.
All right. So now, no, that doesn't. Let's see. Now I do think Jace Brainstorm makes sense.
Right.
A removal spell for this Quada would be excellent.
Yeah, so we can go maybe kill the Coatl, and then we wouldn't be able to kill both Planeswalkers, but we'd be able to, I would assume, at least threaten the Teferi. Now, you'll notice that Sean didn't replay the Yorion. So we upped the Teferi, didn't replay the Yorion. Why do you think that could be? Maybe he picked up a Solitude?
No. Well, I think the Yorion didn't come down because the dress down came down, and then Sean decided.
Oh, and he wanted to save it. Okay.
Yeah, he wanted to save it. So, and the Quaddle was available. So, yeah, I thought that made
Felt
sense.
like he just didn't want to block her, maybe?
Yeah, I thought from Sean's side that made sense.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, it's like that one scenario you were talking about. It's like, well, if the Kotal dies, you want to be able to maybe have a blocker to protect the Teferi, but then you're giving up a lot of value on the Yorion. So yeah, I guess that does make sense.
All right, iteration, first spell for the turn, despite being the 7th cards that Tom Tracy has seen for the turn.
We find. But another iteration. Okay. Classic chain iterations. Get a Shredder trigger, discard an extra land. So Tom is really looking for a removal spell. I think I saw a Heat. Yeah, there's a Heat. Okay.
So Bolt, I think, would pretty clearly go after the Quaddle. Heat is more interesting in that it can, yeah. Okay, so it just takes out the Teferi straight away, and then maybe your plan is. Sorry.
You could also just heat the Kotal and then have Murktide kill the Teferi, right?
Right.
I guess that's a little riskier.
Yeah. Then you're risking Solitude. So the options here. So Tom Tracy could just try and protect this Jace. And all right, so the Quaddle trades with the Murktide, and yeah, so Sean untaps Yorion in hand. Yorion and Ren 6 versus Shredder and Jace. Interesting stuff.
Trading with the Quaddle there is very interesting.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I feel like I would it is a little bit riskier to kill the Quaddle and try to go after Teferi with the Murktide, but it puts you in such, obviously a much more commanding position where you have 2 flyers versus the Ren, which isn't able to ultimate this turn.
Mm-hmm.
I think I may have liked to see that a little bit more, but we'll see what Tom has in store here.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. I think 10 mana. There's one abundant growth somewhere, even though I can't see it right now. So maybe that's 9 mana, even though it looks like 10.
Yeah. That's the worst part about abundant growth is you just kind of have to it's just stacked up with all your lands and.
All right, Ren 6 goes to 7. Supreme Verdict takes out Shredder. So Tom's gonna need what? Dash Ragavan or Unholy Heat? Or I guess Lightning Bolt does it too. But this Ren 6 is you can't let that ultimate. And I think
that brings up a good point. The abundant growth actually died because it was on a fetch land.
Oh, okay.
Murktide's a good start, but it's not going to answer this Ren and 6, and I don't know if Tom can play through a Ren ultimate. It's gonna be tough.
Nearly impossible. Yeah, when your opponent has Supreme Verdict in the graveyard, Time Warps in their deck. Yeah, you really don't want to let that happen. But Brainstorm. All right, so this is an interaction that I see all the time, and it drives me crazy. If you're going to brainstorm with Jace and you're going to play Murktide, I believe very strongly that the Jace brainstorm should be happening first.
Wow,
that's nice.
Otawara.
Yeah,
we can't even fight over that, even if Sean had a counterspell.
Super slick. Yeah, so these channel lands really the ability to more or less dodge the stack continually plays a role. And
wow, oh no,
business here. Okay.
That's an Emrakul.
Yeah. Emrakul with the Jace in play.
Oh my goodness. You see what's going to happen here? So Sean's going to suicide the Murktide into the Emrakul, and then Jace bounce the Emrakul to take another turn.
Yeah. And
Oh,
that's something that can happen a couple times, depending on what the actually Jace does. Yeah, this is going to be, this might be a long turn. Certainly for Tom Tracy, this is going to be a turn that he's just going to be wishing was over with the whole time.
Yeah, I guess Chat makes a good point. We could have cast the Ren in 6 to go ping the Jace so that when we bounce the Emrakul, the Jace dies. That could have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that's so good that then does that imply there must be a Sean Gallagher must have something else to do then.
Yeah, because he had exactly enough left over to play the Ren. So we're going to iteration. Right. Is that Tarn, iteration, Murktide? It's on the bottom. The Murktide's on the bottom?
Okay. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, so
there's
suicide the Murktide, yep. And then I would assume bounce the Emrakul, but we're going to brainstorm here, okay? Yeah, I mean, I guess the Emrakul's just lethal, so keeping that in play. I might have wanted to see fetch first, because if you fetch first, you could then put back 2, you know what I mean? You can hide a good card with the Jace, but I guess then Tom just brainstorms next turn anyways, so. Oh yeah, heat the Jace, yep, okay. You could even go consider plus dispute, and yeah, that's enough for Tom.
Yeah. All right. So Emrakul does more than enough there and cleans up the Jace, the Murktide, and the rest of the game. So we've got all right. So we're figuring out whether we actually have time for the last game or not, I believe is what we're being told. Okay. All right. Well, apologies. We're not going to have time to watch game 3 of the match. Sean Gallagher playing 4-color Yorion did win game 3 as well to take down the match over Tom Tracy there.